Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss the BFG, starring Mark Rylance, Ruby Barnhill, Penelope Wilton, Jermaine Clement, Rebecca Hall, Rafe Spall, and Bill Hader, directed by Steven Spielberg. Now, this is the first Disney film from Steven Spielberg, other than like Indiana Jones or something, but that doesn't really count because that came from Paramount. But yeah, I'm kind of glad that he's getting to a Disney film and Roald Dahl's book called the same title, the BFG, aka the Big Friendly Giant. So let's see how this movie goes because I have seen it before. I don't remember too much about it, but let's get into it. Set in London in an orphanage, little Sophie, played by Ruby Barnhill, is an orphan herself. The orphanage is located next to a bar, which is a bad idea to put in London or in any place to begin with. But believe it or not, in this story, the pests are giants, kind of like Jack and the Beanstalk in some ways, as Sophie's cat hears a mystery giant outside, and the giant takes Sophie from the orphanage to take her to his home. And the CGI on the giant is kind of good, but it's not Robert Zemeckis creepy, in my opinion. And Spielberg does a good job at making it look good in telling the story of a little girl and a giant and their relationship, which I'll talk about a little later. Sophie is taken to giant country as the giant, played by Mark Rylance, says to Sophie he's not going to eat her, but tries to befriend her, while the other giants are not as nice as the giant, as his name is BFG, aka Big Friendly Giant at best. And that's what I'm going to call him for the rest of the show, as Sophie wants him to take her back to the orphanage, but he thinks she'll tell everyone, but she says she won't, and BFG doesn't believe her as she threatens to run away, and the dialogue is pretty good, as I've never read the book, but this portrayal of the story by Spielberg is a good piece of work, and the score is tremendous by John Williams, who also did a lot of other Spielberg's films, as well as the original Superman, or to Indiana Jones, to E.T., to even Star Wars. A couple of them he didn't direct, like Superman and Star Wars, as he does a good job with the score as well, John Williams, I mean. The other giants come in BFG's house to get help, at the same time antagonize him and take a potion, as the other giants CGI look a little badly done here. And Mark Rylance does a good job for playing the BFG, like the way he is portrayed and for a family film. It's almost 2 hours, as this needs a little bit of editing. And there were times the movie did take too long and to get to the point of some scenes. And don't get me wrong, I'm not hating this movie, as it tells a story for kids very well. BFG sets up Sophie's bedroom as she grabs something red from his scraps for a jacket, as he puts her in the bedroom as he catches dreams for work, which seems nice as the effects are mediocre, at best. Sophie confesses she's a bad kid and she needs a best friend like BFG. Does as well as he takes Sophie outside and gets captured by other giants as they use him like a ball. And the other giants look pretty bad in this movie. I'm gonna just say it now. It starts to rain as the giants hate the rain, with an exception of BFG, as he takes Sophie to a mountain where we see darkness with a bunch of stars. And that is a great shot. And if Spielberg does anything right about shooting movies, he shows great shots that are appropriate for this scene. And the movie has a great amount of great shots. And the scene where they're next to a tree with some Antarctica lights is breathtaking. BFG tries to catch a fizz wizard that light up, and does eventually catch one and puts it in a jar that turns out is dreams that BFG collects, which we learned about a little earlier in the film. And Sophie catches a bad dream as BFG puts that one in the jar, as well as those effects are pretty well done. So kudos to the people working on the special effects, except for maybe the other giants other than BFG, as they made the movie look pretty, I'll say at best. BFG and Sophie go back to London to collect happy dreams, as those are blue, as the bad ones or bad dreams, I'll say, are red. And I like that, as that's what he does as a giant. And Sophie learns that she left her blanket in giant country and drops Sophie off in in the orphanage. And I'm getting bored. Not really. Well, kind of bored, I'll say best. I'm actually intrigued by this movie at this point, and it does do a good job of keeping me intrigued. Sophie wants to come with BFG, but she's not safe with him, and he leaves her back at the orphanage with her cat. And the actress playing Sophie, aka Ruby Barnhill, does a good job with acting with the giant and CGI, in my opinion. BFG saves Sophie after she tries to jump, and they come with each other as they get home. The giants come inside BFG's home and destroy everything while hiding Sophie, including his work. And what were the other critics thinking of this being a bad movie? Because it's not that bad of a movie, as I'm engaged watching this movie right off the bat. Despite the other giants look kind of bad, in my opinion. Upset about his work being destroyed, BFG is complimented by Sophie about how he speaks beautifully, and Sophie gets an idea of seeing the Queen, played by Penelope Wilton, about giants invading England to eat small children and create a dream for the Queen. And they get to her palace and sneak past the guards. And the movie works rather well, as the cinematography in this is well done. BFG puts a nightmare of giants in the Queen's head, and she wakes up, and Mary, played by Rebecca Hall, comes in and sees the newspaper of children disappearing and sees Sophie hanging by the window, and she tells the story that happens in this movie. As Sophie calls out BFG, and at first he's afraid, but he does come out and introduces himself to the Queen as her humble servant, and offers his assistance to the Queen. And Sophie comes with the Queen to introduce BFG, as the guards are afraid of BFG and give him some food to eat. At this scene was corny, in my opinion. The Queen wants to go to giant country to stop the other giants, and a toast goes in the belief in the BFG, and everyone farts in green, and which it was unnecessary, sure. The Queen's men follow BFG to giant country to give the other giants a nightmare piece of dream while asleep. And the Queen's men wait for the right time to scare the giants away, as Sophie gives them the nightmare as she's spotted by the giants and brings the nightmares in their heads. And the English military capture the other giants, and BFG is free from all the abuse he got from the other giants, as the other giants are taken to a place no one will ever go to and eat small beans, which was kind of amusing because beans, believe it or not, give me gas. Excuse me for bringing that up, but that's true. Sophie wakes up in the Queen's mansion and had a dream sent by BFG, as she looks out the window and shouts, "Good morning, BFG," as the movie ends with him smiling as they're both happy with their lives. And I admire this climax for having heart and spirit of its own, as well as Spielberg's heart and spirit with the John Williams score. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 7.7 out of 10. The other giants do look rather bad, but BFG's effects look good, and Mark Rylance gives a good performance as the big friendly giant, and Ruby Barnhill does a good job acting with CGI giants. I do like the spirit of the John Williams score that feels like Spielberg's spirit at best, and the movie does a good job with connecting with the characters. I like this movie for the spirit of Spielberg, as I would eventually watch this again, but on my Apple TV. But I won't watch this again on Blu-ray, as it kept me engaged at the beginning. Did kind of feel bad as the movie progresses, but it got better. So yeah, parents if or grandparents, check this out with your kids or grandkids, as it'll be good for them as well as you. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me for this review, and until next time.